Every country on earth is in debt. The United States owes more than $38 trillion, the highest in its history. The European Union carries nearly $14 trillion. Japan owes close to $9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and export giants like Germany and China are drowning in debt. But here's the paradox. If everyone owes money, then who is the creditor? This question takes us deep into the world of financial history, where money, power, and the past collide. Because debt isn't just a burden, it is the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every boom, every collapse, all of it is built on an invisible scaffolding of IOUs. And if you follow that chain of debt far enough, you find something unsettling. The world doesn't owe money to someone else. It owes money to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Today, global debt has passed $315 trillion, almost 3 times the size of the world economy. To understand how we arrived here, we need to travel back to the beginning. Centuries before credit cards or digital transfers, national debt was born not in banks, but on the battlefield. In 1694, England was fighting France and running out of gold. The king turned to wealthy merchants for help. In exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments funded by future taxes, they financed the crown. To manage this system, the Bank of England was created. This changed everything. The state could now spend money it did not yet have, and merchants received something entirely new, a government promise, backed by taxes that could be traded, bought, or sold. This was the birth of the government bond, the seed of modern finance. France adopted it. The Netherlands refined it. The United States used it to fund its revolution and expand westward. Debt became not a failure, but a measure of power. The ability to borrow became the ability to rule. Empires once conquered land for gold. Now they issued bonds for interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Fast forward 300 years, debt has become the world's largest export. The U.S. owes $38 trillion. Japan owes $9 trillion. Global borrowing grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country borrows. Every bank lends. And every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both debtor and creditor. So, who actually holds the other end of the rope? Let's start with the United States, because its debt is not just national. It is global. Of the $38 trillion total, about half is publicly held, owed to investors. 2/3 of those investors are American. Banks, pension funds, insurance companies, mutual funds, and the Federal Reserve. The remaining 1/3, around $9 trillion, belongs to foreign holders. Japan is the largest with about $1 trillion. China holds around $800 billion. So when someone says America is in debt to China, it's true, but only for about 2% of the total. Most of America's debt is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve buys them back and creates new dollars. Americans pay taxes, which fund interest payments, which flow back into American retirement accounts. A closed-loop mirror system. And it's global. Japan lends to the U.S. The U.S. lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations. Developing nations reinvest their reserves into Western bonds. It's a worldwide game of hot potato, except the potato is made of promises. Above all this sits another layer: the markets, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks, the true arbiters of credit. They decide who borrows cheaply and who pays a survival premium. When confidence disappears, currencies collapse, governments fall, and economies can change overnight. Democracy decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. And at the center of this machine sits its high priest, the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt, they manufacture it. When they buy government bonds, they create new money. Every dollar in circulation is someone else's debt. There is no such thing as debt-free money. For decades, this system has worked because of one thing: confidence. As long as investors believe governments will pay interest, even if they never repay the principal, the machine keeps turning. But when confidence breaks, the illusion collapses. We saw this in Greece, in Argentina, in Sri Lanka. When the system breaks, the creditors suddenly have faces. IMF officials, rating agencies, anonymous bondholders. But even after collapse, the cycle restarts. Old debts are replaced with new ones. The same balance sheet, just different names. Because in the 21st century, debt is not designed to be repaid. It is designed to be rolled over. Governments don't eliminate debt. They refinance it. Interest becomes the real product. The global economy depends on this interest. Like a shark, it must keep moving to survive. The U.S. will never pay off its $38 trillion debt. Japan's debt exceeds 250% of GDP, and its yields remain near zero. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid. They're waiting to renew the deal. Why? Because government bonds are the safest collateral on earth. If the U.S. paid off all its debt, the financial system would lose its foundation. Banks would lose their safest asset. The dollar supply would shrink. Deflation would crush the economy. So governments do the opposite. They issue more debt, not recklessly, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism. When politicians promise to eliminate the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to erase debt. It's to keep the world believing it can be repaid. And that belief is everything. Because here's the truth. The plan was never to repay the debt. The plan is to maintain the belief that it will be repaid as long as trust holds. The numbers can grow indefinitely, but that trust is not shared equally. Debt doesn't just move money between nations. It moves money between classes. Interest flows upward from workers and taxpayers to funds, banks, and large investors. Creditors aren't villains. Debtors aren't victims. They're two sides of the same engine. The danger comes when the engine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can't meet old promises. At the top of this global pyramid, there is no single villain. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of them and us. Modern finance has turned debt into money. Governments create it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. Debt once meant bondage. Today it means balance. But if that balance tips, the illusion ends, and we remember what debt really is: a promise that cannot be kept forever. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. History holds the answers, and here on WealthLore, I'll show you where to look.